back with us at Spa. Mika Häkkinen, the winner here. David Coulthard, his McLaren teammate, in fourth. And David joins us right now. David, definitely not the result you wanted. You really wanted more than fourth this afternoon, didn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, to keep in there with a hunt for the championship, I've got to be scoring more points, and obviously make it difficult for myself, not qualifying as well as I would have liked. But I'm trying to understand exactly what we were doing at the pit stop, because obviously I lost a lot of place there, and that put me out behind Frentzen, which I'm not sure how many seconds I lost there, but it was a good second for each lap I was behind him. And you know, even one extra point would have been good today.
That's happened to you a little bit before, hasn't it? One or two, you've come out worse on sort of pit stop strategy. Can you throw any light on what, or any more light on why that did happen again today?
I can't really until I talk to the team. You know, obviously when I saw Michael pit, then I started a conversation as to whether it was the right time or not. And you take it as read that the team are going to look at the sector times and advised as best they can what would be the thing to do. Now, obviously Mika decided to pit the next lap. Given how far back I was, then I think there's a possibility that I could have pitted that lap as well. And even if I had to queue up slightly, I would have lost less time than I lost obviously doing the complete lap. So there's things like that, I think, that, perfectly honest, as a team we need to sharpen up on. And obviously, from one point of view, from Mika's point of view, then it was a perfect race. But you know, I want to get more out of my races, and the last few have not been good enough.
We reckon you lost anything between 30 and 40 seconds on that particular manoeuvre, David. How would you sum up now the rest of the season from your point of view? I suppose the big question everybody back home is going to be asking is, are you still chasing the world title?
I am, but obviously now it's getting further away, because if all cars are finishing races, then you know, I don't know the exact maths, but I guess I've got to win the next 3 races, next 4 races, and you know, that's going to be difficult against the competition. But a lot of things can happen. You know, reliability obviously is a factor which can win you back a lot of points, and you know, I'm definitely not going to give up on that dream until the points don't add up.
It is a dream for you. Do you think reality might set in, and that perhaps your team boss Ron Dennis next week will say, well, David, now again you have to support Mika Häkkinen's charge?
No, I don't.
Okay, let's just talk about the start, can we, David? Because there was a lot of confusion around at the start. And were you one of the drivers who wanted the start to be behind the safety car? Because it did you no favours as well, didn't it? Yeah,
obviously it took away the opportunity to overtake, but it also took away the potential for an incident. And I know there'll be a debate over it, but the fact is I was asked beforehand, and I said that based on the previous years we've had here, the safest thing is to have a safety car start. You know, you can have a go heroes into the first corner, and your whole weekend's ruined. So I'd rather be finishing fourth than going out at the first corner. So I think in this situation, based on the experience here of the past few years, I think Charlie made the right decision.
And do you think that was the feeling of most of the drivers down there?
I believe he was going to ask the other 2 directors of the GPDA, and if there was a unanimous decision, that's what he would do. So I presume Michael and Alex said the same as I did, and then the others who don't put as much effort in don't get a say.
Good. Just before you go, I think Tony wants a word with you, Tony.
Well, it was really just to follow up on that start, because as Martin was saying on the commentary there, David, as well, it wasn't that wet at all, and I just wondered why it was a decision of all the drivers. Normally when it's just confined to the FIA who make that decision, and you have to go out and get on with it, because you, along with a lot of other drivers, were disadvantaged.
I didn't hear the last part of your sentence there, but I think that the bottom line is we've seen a number of incidents here over the last few years when we've had wet starts, cars going out at the first corner. Surely for everyone it's got to be better to see all the cars making around the first lap, and then a race from there. Obviously it takes away that excitement that everyone tunes in for that first 5 minutes of a Grand Prix, and then they probably tune off until the pit stops. But you know, you have to make a decision, and I think this was a smart decision based on the experience of this race. So we just have to accept it as it was, and another circuit may have been a different decision.
Okay, David, we appreciate not the best day you've had at work in the year 2000. We appreciate you joining us as you have done. Thanks very much indeed.
Thanks.
Okay, well, Martin with us. Martin, let's talk about the start. David adopted the party liner that most of the drivers seem to be saying to you before the start, that, yeah, we prefer the safety car, but it deprived us of a great spectacle. And listen to you in commentary, you didn't agree with it, did you?
No, it was clear to me the track was not wet enough for to be necessary for the safety car. I understand their concerns. Nobody wants drivers killed. I mean, it's amazing. A couple of years ago when we had that huge accident there that somebody wasn't badly injured or killed. I accept that, but this is a dangerous sport, you know. It says so on the back of the tickets, as Bernie Ecclestone will tell you. And that track, you can see it there for yourselves, does not need a safety car at all. There was a bit of spray when they got. I know it's terrifying. You can't even see your own steering wheel when you're going up the back straight. But it's part and parcel of Grand Prix racing. You've got to cope with all of the elements. You've got to take the risks, and you've got to make the best of all of the conditions.
You really saying though that if you'd have been among that lot today, you'd have been the one who'd have said, "I want this race to start properly"?
I started this race a dozen times, and I bet at least half a dozen of those times was in the pouring rain. It's what you do. You're a Grand Prix driver. You drive Grand Prix.
Can I just say something else, Jim? And I can go back to '96 here when Martin was driving the Jordan in Brazil before the start of the race. It deluged. It was literally a lake. And they asked Martin to go out and take the car out. And there was a bow wave came up over the front of the car. That's the sort of testing of the conditions beforehand. And if you take '97 here, it deluged 20 minutes before the start and it started behind the safety car. That was fair enough, but those conditions did not warrant it, and I believe it was a decision of the FIA. It's like all the Manchester United players getting around the referee and barracking him on the pitch or on the circuit, say, hey, we've got to go behind the safety car. I'm sorry, that's not how it should have been. And you come to Spa, which is the most daunting and difficult of tracks. It is part of it. It's part of a Grand Prix driver's skill to make the start, and it goes with the territory here at Spa-Francorchamps.
The bottom line is going to David, who we've just spoken to. He needed something extra special at the start, and that was denied him.
Yes, it was, but as David pointed out, it could have gone either way. He could have made up a place, or he could have had have a go hero, as he puts it, running into him. So, the people most advantaged were at the sharp end of the grid, and the people most disadvantaged were at the back end of the grid. But I have to say, Gerhard Berger said to me on the line, "I'm really pleased I'm not driving this Grand Prix today." He said, "I wouldn't want to be driving this Grand Prix." I mean, as it happens, I would have. But, once you get that first lap out of the way, it calms down a bit. So, drive sensibly.
Yeah, strange that we had a dry race as well throughout. What about Jenson Button here, Martin? I would think he's quite chuffed that he drove the race today.
He drove a good race today. We saw him have a bad half lap, really. He totally went the wrong side of Trulli there, trying to get through. He sort of tucked himself up in an area where he was never going to get through, and Schumacher then leapt over him instead. I think Jenson probably felt annoyed about that, by the looks of it, and tried to make it all up in the very next corner. And he's a long way behind, look, at this stage of the Jordan, and the Jordan having to get off the brake, but that was always going to end up in tears. Fortunately for Jenson, not his tears, but it did cost him quite dearly in the race, and that wasn't the smartest move I've seen him do behind the wheel of a Grand Prix car, but I'm supersonic impressed he was up there to do it in the first place.
We had Eddie Jordan sitting here saying that Sir Frank Williams must be crackers, letting him go. I don't know what Eddie might say to him after what he did to his man Trulli there, though.
Well, no, perhaps he'd have a different view on it. But when he analyses it in complete, looking at the race in totality, you see that at least Jenson Button is prepared to have a go, because this Briatore said, I'm signing this guy, he's very good. The one thing he lacks is aggression. With experience, he's going to learn that. And he had a go today, and we've seen him in the wet and the dry at Spa, and he's been great. Okay, he made a mistake there, but Trulli let him off. Afterwards, he said, well, okay, it's a mistake that happens. And he still got the thing through to 5th place. Yeah. The guy's a real star.
Mika Häkkinen won this race despite spinning off, and we didn't actually see the spin in great detail, but he's done really, really well to recover from it and come through and win.
Yeah, you summed it up. He won the race, literally. I mean, he went out there and took the race back. He'd given it away with that spin. The Belgian TV guys sort of missed the key moment. They've got the end of it, look. But a bit of a half spin, really, there from Mika. Front brakes on, front end comes back on the wet grass, and off he goes. There's Michael Schumacher going through to take the lead. And the next sector of the race, Mika really looked like he'd blown it. He didn't have the speed, he couldn't respond. We know he had a heavier fuel load now than Michael Schumacher because he pitted a while later. But really, Michael seemed to have the legs by a long way, 1 second a lap sometimes on Mika. After the second stop, Mika just got a second breath, didn't he?
How do you explain that? How come he was so much quicker after the second stop and made up all that ground on Michael Schumacher?
I think it's a combination of probably the tyres felt a little bit better to him. The track was virtually bone dry then, and I think he just gritted his teeth and went for it, frankly. He wanted that race win, didn't he?
He did. David Coulthard had troubles getting past Heinz Harald Frentzen, didn't he? And finally managed it on a pit stop. Tony, but this was never really going to be David's day, though, was it?
No, because he'd been stuck behind him because, he'd had to wait and go around that extra lap to come in. But this is where, it was the McLaren guys against the Jordan guys. And, of course, it's Coulthard against Heinz-Harald Frentzen. We'd already had this spat in qualifying where they'd actually ruined each other's qualifying session. But, the McLaren guys, Michael Negline, the chief mechanic, and the guys from Oakham got him out just ahead of Heinz-Harald Frentzen. And it was important because DC's not out of it altogether yet, and at least he was able to salvage some points.
Frentzen apparently didn't get on the right spot there, did he? But I mean, just going back to what really cost David so dearly, the mess up, you can describe that when he had to do the extra lap. And what's your best guess about that? I mean, will there be meetings about that, and will McLaren say, well, perhaps we didn't play fair by him?
No, I think they just didn't do it very well, but in a way, also David's got to take command of the situation. I mean, Alesi pitted even a lap earlier. The Ferrari were responding to Alesi's section times, in my view. And if David felt it was ready for slicks, he should have made the call, should have come in. I lost the Grand Prix here in '92 because I believed it was the right time to come in. Michael Schumacher went off in front of me and I decided to wait one more lap. Michael saw my tyres, came in, and he won the race. But you've got to have the courage of your convictions. And I think they should have called him in on the same lap as Hakkinen. I said it on the commentary, 17.4 seconds. We know they stopped for no longer than 11, so quite clearly he's going to be coming into the garage 6 seconds after Mick has left. They've got to get his tyres out and his fuel rig ready, but if it cost them another 3 or 4 seconds, that's the absolute maximum.
You're always a believer in that, almost queuing.
I don't think they would have queued. Mick was never going to be stationary for 17 seconds. They would not have queued.
Same as Hockenheim, wasn't it?
Yeah, I really.
Queuing would have been better.
And what surprises me is if it's so clear for us up in the commentary box to say that, I can't understand why it's not clear for others to see it too.
He had a good two British drivers had a terrific scrap during what was a very eventful Grand Prix, wasn't it? Coulthard and Button, and Jensen held him back for a while, but had to give way in the end.
I mean, this is a little bit of a rerun the end of Hockenheim, because if you remember, Jensen, Button was coming to the field. He closed in on David Coulthard, but this time coming up to Lake Coombe, over 200 miles an hour superiority there, and through comes Coulthard to take the 4th place. But it's nice to see the two of them together. Nice clean manoeuvre as well. The great thing is, I think the older drivers as well can trust Jensen Button. From very early on, they've learned this guy's good, his track craft is good, and they're prepared, to let him have a go. They don't think he's dangerous, do they?
No, in fact, when we were doing the track guide earlier on in the weekend with Jock Clear, Villeneuve's engineer, he was saying to me, Villeneuve has a lot of respect for Button because he's tough on the track, but he plays fair as well. And it's unusual for Jacques Villeneuve to say something positive about another driver. Put it that way.
Yeah. I think we'll all endorse that up here anyway. Occasionally here we say, well, the big two, they never actually fight it out, they never go toe to toe, eyeball to eyeball. But I think when we look back at this Belgian Grand Prix, we will remember this scrap between Schumacher and Hakkinen.
This was opportunist from Hakkinen here, using the back marker. I thought he would need the back marker in Eau Rouge, but we know he had. This is the early one, actually, the first time he tried to get through, and Michael really closing the door quite nicely, a touch late, but very effectively, let's say. And now, second opportunity, we know that Hakkinen's got 10 kilometres an hour more in a straight line, plus the toe on that occasion. And Michael will be very surprised to see Mika coming round the other side. I don't know why Michael elected to go the long way round Zonta at that point. It was totally opportunistic, and you have to say a mistake there from Michael.
That was a Schumacher error, you'd say, would you?
I think, yes. By leaving the door open on the inside like that, he quite clearly offered Mika the short way round. And there's a lot of grip. Everybody knows there's superb grip up the inside into Les Combes. You can really break late there.
Well, I hope they're going to ask Michael Schumacher about that when they go to the press conference. We will be joining that press conference when you rejoin us. Okay then, let's hear what the big three have got to say in the press conference. The two Schumachers are there, and so is the winner of the Belgian Grand Prix, Mika Hakkinen.
Weekend.
Confirmation of the standings for you. Hakkinen 74, Michael Schumacher 68, David Coulthard 61, Barrichello 49, Ralf Schumacher 20, Fisichella 18. And Mercedes, McLaren 125, Ferrari 117, the big two, BMW looking good for that third place. Let's have a word with Jenson Button. Started third, finished fifth. Here he is chatting to James Allen.
Jenson Button, what an amazing day. First of all, you started in third place and you were very dynamic at the start.
Yeah, we were. The car was working well at the beginning. I tried to get the inside of Truly into the first corner. I think it was on the second or third lap, and it just didn't happen. We collided, and that's how I dropped back to fifth, I think. But all round, it's good to get some points, but a bit disappointing.
You seem a bit disappointed because obviously you were looking at trying to win this race, weren't you?
I don't know about win it, but it would have been nice to be in the top three. But there you go. Hopefully next time.
Was it very, very different when the conditions changed to full dry? Were you able to keep the pace?
Yeah, it was very, very different, obviously. It was from wet to dry. It was very difficult to know when to do the pit stop also. I think we were a bit late, but all round, it's not too bad. Got some points, and I think I'm very close to Jack now in the champ, so it's good.
Not too bad. He's had a belting weekend. OK, let's just sum it all up, shall we? Tony Jardine, you first.
Well, I mean, Bruce McLaren won first here for McLaren in '68. It's the first time for Hakkinen, looking very, very strong. But it is now Kraus's time at Ferrari. Monza is next, and they've got to try and prevent a riot in red, I'm afraid.
Interesting hearing Michael Schumacher admitting there, saying they were just too quick here.
Yeah, but it was fascinating also to hear him say, my team told me that he was much faster than me down the straight. There's a lot of information passed between Schumacher and his team. I think that's why he's so smart during the race. I mean, effectively, he was much closer to winning this race today than we thought he would be after free practice and qualifying. And we know he's good at Monza, we know he's good in Japan and Malaysia. Indianapolis is a complete unknown to anybody. So I think he's right to say I'm not out of this yet. But Mika Hakkinen, I mean, that's now 42 points out of 50 in the last 5 races.
OK, thank you very much to you both. And as Martin had just said there, yep, next we go to Monza for the Italian Grand Prix, the full ITV service in a couple of weeks' time. Of course, highlights tonight 11:15, ITV2 tomorrow at 7, and then off we go to Monza, qualifying live 11:30 on the Saturday, the race live at 12:15. Well, the hack attack continues. Mika Hakkinen has won in Belgium for the first time thanks to a brilliant late manoeuvre, overtaking the Spa master, Michael Schumacher. See you in a couple of weeks. Bye-bye.